What's going on, Port fans? Welcome back to another video on the channel, and today we're going to be previewing round 9. It's Port Adelaide versus North Melbourne in Tassie. It's going to be a very interesting game. It's the Jason Horne-Francis Cup this weekend. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what Port Adelaide can produce down in Tasmania. It's going to be a massive game in terms of 6 in a row. We're going for 6 in a row, and North Melbourne coming off one of the worst games of football I've ever seen against St Kilda, losing by 5 goals. So no matter what happens this weekend, we're just going to come out with a win and make sure that Jason Horne-Francis is protected, because I can tell North Melbourne are going to come out all guns blazing. Let's get straight into it and preview round 9. There's been a lot of talk this week and a lot of chatter and murmurs about what North Melbourne are going to do. Port Adelaide have been on the front foot with saying they're going to protect Jason Horne-Francis at all costs. Obviously with the booing, obviously with the treatment he'll get from North Melbourne players, in particular the likes of Zeeble and Zerha. They're going to be going after the kid, and it's going to be something that I think Port Adelaide need to focus on football more so than just focusing on protecting one player. Now, obviously, he's an element of our midfield that needs to be protected. He's going to have to take some hits. That's part of the game, and that's the perspective I think we've all got to take into this one. And hopefully, with a bit of protection and also a bit of courtesy from the umpires to look at it and say, hey, that's not on. Or if there's anything, obviously, that pushes the line, then definitely he'll be able to play a good game of footy, and the game's played in a decent spirit. So that's my touch on that particular topic. Obviously, there's not going to be a lot of booing in Tasmania because no one attends these games. So I think in that aspect, it's going to be okay. But overall, you look at the game as its own perspective, and Port Adelaide should do the job, should win this game. It's up against an opposition that's played pretty poor footy over the last few weeks, and a lot of talk and comments about how they've been structuring up and the way they've been playing. They've obviously got a few people back of recentness with Ben Mackay, Griffin Logue, and finding their structures and positioning. So we're going to play this game well. We're going to play this game right and hopefully get a big percentage boost. The one key element for me is the coaching aspect. It's Alistair Clarkson versus Ken Hinkley. Now, Ken Hinkley's been very well coached recently on the bench. He's won 5 in a row. You've got Clarkson, who's been under a little bit of the pressure with comments coming from the likes of Kane Corns and the media outlets saying that North Melbourne have very much lost their way. Obviously, in those kinds of chatter, you get a bit motivated when you're a person under the pump, and Clarkson is still a great coach. He's still going to have plenty of things up his sleeve for Port Adelaide, and I don't expect this to be something that we just walk there, get the victory, come home, 10-goal win. No, I think it's going to be a fight. We're going to have to play really good footy to make sure that we do get that percentage boost that I think we do need, especially going into the next few weeks with what Port Adelaide have as a fixture. So that's probably the one thing that makes me a little bit nervy. It's in Tassie. It's going to be cold. It might be a bit wet, and it's games like these that you don't want to slip up or make harder than you want them to be in terms of playing footy. And we saw last year we went down there. We were 3 and 5 and got the job done by 70 odd points. And I do expect that to happen again. That is my expectation. I don't necessarily think it can happen, but that is my expectation purely on the basis of how we've played. We've been well drilled, and I think overall as a package, Port Adelaide are a 10-goal better side than North Melbourne. They just have to put it on the scoreboard, and they just have to kick straight. In terms of selection this week, I'm looking at possibly doing the one change. Obviously, Rioli's out for 2 weeks with his suspension. The tribunal making that very clear that it wasn't. It was a situation kind of bizarre. You didn't really notice it when you were there, but for him to be reported in that aspect, a little disappointing. He's been very good for us over the last couple of weeks, and I think losing someone like that is very, it's going to hurt the scoring ability. But in saying that, I think the likes of Francis Evans coming in and getting a go, even possibly bringing in a Jackson Mead type and rotating that midfield a little bit more could be something that we look at in that aspect. So I think with the selection process, it's quite simple. There's one change, Rioli out. There wasn't really any injuries. Jonas will play on the weekend, and I think he's going to be fine. So he'll definitely keep his spot. And we've got to talk about how we're going to win this game. And I've been saying that scoring pressure and out of the midfields, there's going to be one key department. I think starting well. Obviously, we know our second and third quarters have been pretty prominent this year, and our will and ability to keep going in games is very, very strong. But I think starting well in the ruck, give Teakle a bit of confidence up against Goldstein. I think having that that confidence early on is really just going to help us build a strong game together. 4-quarter performance. And you want to come out of this game with no injuries either. So playing that competitive way, playing that fast approach, try and make this game a little bit less contested, a little bit more uncontested, get the ball in the hands of Rosie, Jason Horne-Francis going inside 50, Boak on the wing, Bergman as well, who's been superb. So I think it's a very simple game to preview in the way that you look at it, but there's some elements in this game that are really concerning. I think North's, their willingness and their ability to make teams play on their terms, which is obviously pretty poor. They're not the greatest team, and they're definitely 17th for a reason. And they've been pumped by Melbourne a couple of weeks prior. They made that game against St Kilda very, very ugly, although St Kilda kicked very, very poorly as well. So this is why if you bring it to their terms and they play at their level, you're going to make this game worse and horrible and just a game you want to forget. So if you don't allow them to do that early on, you damage their confidence straight away. You're really just making them trying to chip away at a lead, and they're definitely not going to catch something that's going to be 6 goals plus. So I think overall, I'm speaking confidently about this game. Obviously, there's some edginess about it, and you want this to be a blowout. You want this to not be close at all, and I fear Port Adelaide could make this a game where we win by 40 points and be happy with it. Similar to the West Coast game a couple of weeks ago at home. You want this to be a big, strong win. You got to make sure this is a big, strong win. And if we're going to be a big top 4 team, or even competing top 6 or want a home final at the end of the year to continue on and winning, percentage is going to be crucial, and you don't get a lot of opportunities to actually build your percentage well, and especially with ours being at 103 compared to some of the others who have had, there's 120s, 130s in there. That's going to come down over the season, but ours is going to struggle a little bit to go back up to that 110, 115. And with an opportunity like this is where we're going to stamp our authority and make sure that we put the foot to the throat. Let me know in the comments your tips and your comments for this week's game, Port fans. I'm tipping Port Adelaide by 65 points. I think we're going to play that game where we just control everything on our terms, have a big hit out, and a couple of stars might shine. A Todd Marshall 5 or a Dixon 4, Finlayson 5, something like that is going to shine. I would really love to see multiple goal kickers throughout the day and really just, getting everyone's confidence up and going, ready for a big month that's going to come up afterwards as well. So this is a game that we must win. We must win well and get ready for what's going to be a massive, massive day. Thank you very much for watching, Port fans. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for plenty more Port Adelaide content and AFL content to come your way. The Glass Table is recently out, episode 10. Travis Boak, number of episodes. So make sure you go check that one out with JT and I. Presenting all the funniness of football and a recap of round 8 as well. So get around that. Follow on the socials. Thank you very much for watching once again. My name is Anthony, and as always, come there.